Hey, this is a talk with Peter and Benjamin. We really explore their experience, the kind of last, I think it's maybe even 5, 6 years developing in the practice. Peter being very involved in training in business and doing coaches trainings, and Benjamin is an artist who makes productions, and they've been using surrendered leadership, transformational connection to to really inspire their work. And we really go into how their practice has developed, in how this sense of trusting being, or beingness as we call it in this conversation, how that's emerged for them, and how growing sense of ease, being more intuitive and able to really be responsive to what's present and follow a more intuitive flow. So it's really cool to hear how that's emerging more and more in their practice and in their life. And to say something about the how the practice develop that, it's what we're really calling for, or being called into in the practice, is can we be present with others? And by being present, can we really discover what is really here in us? Like, what's the way we're thinking and orienting? What's the way we're feeling and sensing? Because there's oftentimes we're kind of in an automatic or subconscious, slightly unconscious kind of way of being. We can be subtly in a kind of eagerness or sadness or efforting, or like slightly survival ways of being. And the practice helps us wake up to where we really are. And when we wake up and start to trust and be more able to share what's true, it's like we can go on into kind of what we were calling beingness, which is like a sense of integration and deeper choice about who we are and where we're going, and what's really here. And so, in the practice, we'll often really practice sensing what's in our experience while being with each other, and being in a group, exploring what's happening in a group in the moment. And as we share more of ourselves and we see others bringing more of what's there for them, we experience this kind of intimacy and awareness that keeps opening and unfolding. And what the guys share in this call, which is really, it's really nice to hear, is also some of the challenges they faced. And uh, Peter talks about how he was in a kind of almost like a computer game where you start to feel good and you complete a level, and then you start a new level and it's like you're starting again, and there's more difficult puzzles, and even though you've learned more, you there's more now to face, and that keeps unfolding. And then Ben talking about how some of his early challenges of really being able to express himself and find where his truth was, and how he found these subtle doorways to being more in his truth. And we end the call, speaking about how this practice may meet the world, and if the world is calling for it, and seeing that, yeah, in all of us there's a sense of wanting to be really true to this kind of beingness, or that we don't know, yeah, what role this practice and our leadership of this practice is going to take in the world, and really feeling that together and feeling aligned and kind of being in the unknown. So I hope you enjoy this journey, and it was really cool to be with Benjamin and Peter. Hey, Peter, Benjamin. Great to have you here. So I invited you guys on because, well, we're creating the first ever SAS Transformational Connection training in Brussels.
Yeah.
Yeah, taking on Brussels. Um, and I thought it would be a great chance for us actually to really explore some of your journey with transformational connection and surrendered leadership. You guys have both been practicing for a good few years now, and we've had some pretty wild adventures and uh, intimate encounters. But I know you guys have really been applying the kind of principles of the practice in business, in arts, in personal life, in your spiritual journey. And
Mm.
yeah, I thought it'd be just really cool for us just to see what might arise. Yeah, if we have a
Yeah.
dialogue. So yeah, welcome.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks.
It's
Yeah.
really cool to be here.
And I think I want to start. Well, I know Benjamin's just got back from Colombia, but my attention goes to you, Peter. Yeah, you were mentioning before that you've been leading recently, and yeah, I wondered if you wanted to share more
Mm-hmm.
and what you've been cooking.
Yeah. Yeah. It could. I, I led 2 online circles last month, or like last month and a half, and the way I stepped in as a leader felt felt surprising, and I could see my journey that I've been through with transformational connection. Yeah, it touches upon like trusting your experience, which is about just being with what you experience and then seeing that as something whole and valuable and a place where you can start leading from. And I was surprised by the ease I had at the start of the call. Like I usually go through like, and that's how I've been leading groups in my business work as well. As the tighter I have prepared my schedule with all the details, the more comfortable I feel. But then missing out on what's really alive and true to do with the group. And I didn't have much time to prepare, and I didn't care much about it. Like and it was really nice to lead the group from such ease, trusting that everything was available in the moment to see how to navigate the circle. Uh, yeah, it was really nice, and then really really being conscious about, oh, that's really because of practicing and,
Yeah.
and because of the whole journey that I've been with this practice.
So
Yeah, I
it
feel
sounds
really like
like
touched by that, seeing it.
mm,
I feel something in my heart that softens and is really thankful for having this practice in my life and all the connections around it.
mm. So it sounds like while you're leading, you're kind of discovering, oh, there's an ease here that might have been emerging for a while, but it seemed like it really like stood out to you, and you could remember how you could maybe feel some ease if you had really planned stuff, but it seemed like this was just about you being yourself or being present.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's not that it was new in a sense of, but it was new it was new because it was like straight from the beginning. Like mostly it takes a lot of time to, when I lead days or start off with a new group, to like feel safe in myself. Yeah, it's a lot about feeling safe and have everything available here, and it's okay to bring it, or to let it lead me.
Mm.
Yeah, like even here in this discussion, it's like I can feel this part of me is like, is this the right word, or is this what we should go to, and like letting that go.
Yeah, and it sounds like in the ease, something you feel more guided by something or more like you're following a truer path.
Yeah, yeah, it's like it's almost something transcendent. Like there's this illusion that you know what you're going to say, but even here, and there's a thread, there's something I can follow that feels true, or something that comes into my mind that is feels less true or less alive. And that like it's easy said, but even now, like being with those words, it's like, yeah, can I really trust, even if it feels, um, yeah, it's like challenging or even a bit tense because a part of me is not really trusting that threat
Mm.
or that aliveness.
What's it like for you, Benjamin? You've led a lot with Peter. Just hearing him share this.
Yeah, well, I feel it resonated a lot with, I mean, the word that came up to me is like this leap of faith that surrendered leadership is constantly asking me to take. And, and then that in, for example, there was this creation that I did in the summer last August, where I was guiding 20 youngsters between the age of 16 and 24 with a team of like four other colleague musicians, dancers, and a costume designer. And in 2 weeks' time, we had to make a performance of 1 hour. So I could feel like the presence of like surrendered leadership, like at the back, just like trusting the collective intelligence. And it's almost like it was very effortlessly. I wasn't doing it consciously, but just also just bringing it in very like every now and then, but just trusting that everybody was, you know, doing that part. And somehow, like as I was the director, like setting the context of for each day, like how people, how to be, and then it just like towards the end, the piece was really magical. It was like full of aliveness and the feedback afterwards from the students, it is, I felt so much at ease. I really could trust what was coming in. I mean, it was almost like a sense of magic appearing in just in simply in hearing the feedbacks of people, like, oh, that's exactly what I was like behind the scenes was working on, you know. And to just and this was new for me to like have it so palpable, like to get that
Mm-hmm.
back palpable. Yeah, so something about that that when you were speaking that again and again, like taking this leap of faith, that if I'm in surrender and trusting my experience and just knowing like, oh, but something pulls me towards there, okay, I'm just gonna go for
Yeah.
that and see what happens. And then, whereas in the opposite, I was like, oh no, like more in a contraction, like, oh no, I have to, no, it's not happening. And then you're like, yeah, I'm breaking the flow, and the work itself then just doesn't seem to transmit really something. So yeah,
Mm.
I've had horrible experiences where I was like in control, like opposite of surrender leadership, and these pieces just never 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 went anywhere.
Yeah, well, just hearing you both, like I get mindful of like maybe people who are newer to the practice or never done it. And like I imagine for those who are familiar, they'll be like, oh yeah, you're trusting your experience, and oh wow, it sounded like you you weren't just pre-planning, or you weren't shutting down to what was there, you were allowing things to emerge. But I wonder if like you could say more, like what that experience is like, imagining someone newer to the practice, um, yeah, how it was to lead that group of youngsters into music, or what it's like for you now leading a group, Peter, where it's, and what is it you're like that you've kind of developed to do that?
What comes to me is while you even were expressing it, so myself closing my eyes, it's like giving myself the time to feel into my bodily experiences. It's like give a sense of like how I should feel or how I should behave, but like what's on a physiological level or energetic level really there. And there is always some kind of like a lot of times some kind of pressure in me to like go faster than I can. And I can do that, but then I really am skipping a lot of what I'm feeling inside. That informs me of what's possible or what could emerge.
Mm.
So allowing myself time as well. Yeah. Which also could be doing that in movement or while talking, or it's not about being really slow. It's more about an allowance to my own speed of being and my capacity to sense into myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it, and is that that sense of deeper trust? It's like you're you're trusting you can sense what your actual speed is, and you're allowing yourself to go at that speed.
Yeah. And there's even another level that it's like what I easily find in nature. There's some kind of relaxation in all my systems. Like, oh, I'm held. And when I get in touch with like the whole of my body, there's more a sense of holding. Even if a part is tense, it can still be there with the rest. And I get less easily trapped into following that only tense thing that pushes me to do something. Or
Mm.
like, or imagine it's there because of some kind of pattern that has been installed or a habit that is not working anymore.
Yeah, I'm noticing it being with you. It seems like it's a kind of expression that that seems new in your face, and
Hmm.
I'm like listening to your words, kind of almost like waiting for the next word. It kind of draws me in.
Hmm. I think like the core of my being is more visible, and it's a part of me that thinks he needs to work. I need to work hard to make that visible or to be part or to like the paradox. Yeah, so it's quite moving hearing you say that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I can remember a time where I would read kind of spiritual texts, or hear kind of an inspiring speaker talk about their being, and be like, do I know what that is? Or that sounds really kind of deep or aware or something. It's so nice when that, like, that sense of beingness just becomes, yeah, just kind of obvious, like that it was actually always here, but it also required so many layers to be seen and naively expressed, and yeah, difficult processes that we've all navigated.
Yeah, yeah, and still, like, I would like to grab it and hold it. Like, I have this. Yeah, so no
Mm.
strategies around it.
Yeah, what about you, Benjamin? Like, what comes to you when you imagine like sharing with someone newer, like this experience you had with the music?
Well, I don't know, Peter was speaking, like an image came to me, like you're hiking through nature and then you lost your map, you don't know which way to go, and then you get stressed because you need to like get to the end point, and there's like a lot of pressure, and especially like in art creation where like there's the deadline that you need to have, so there's this big pressure. And then you have this tendency to like, okay, no, and there's, I need to over effort, and then you come at a crossroad where there's like three different paths, and you're like, no, okay, and then but you rather than like the surrender leadership for me is really the invitation and the trust to like, okay, I need to get there in time, but right now I'm just gonna rest. I'm gonna be with these three different pathways, and although like I think my mind thinks that part is the best way, but in my whole being I feel like, oh, but actually, but there's actually a fourth way behind the bush. I don't know why, but it's calling me, and then you go that direction, and then all of a sudden you realize that it's taking you in stunning panoramas, and like it's actually a shortcut, and then you arrive right on time, and you had this amazing time, and so that would be like yeah, like a way of explaining it to someone who hasn't. But I think, and then coming back to the beingness of like that you touched upon, for me, it's like, so yeah, there's that beingness, and then there's like the intelligence in that beingness that that is also really hard to grasp, but it just like comes back to like in how it then materializes, or so like these kind of like, and then yeah, again in art practice, like it's just like you get it back as a mirror, like this is the result of like trusting, yeah, this so it's not anymore of like this little point of view, but it's like, okay, I'm a network and there's many people operating at the same time, and if I just allow myself to be moved, then
Oh,
you know I will arrive at something that then also in its form, like as an art form, is just something that is like, oh, you see it and it's okay, I made this, and actually one of my golden principles in working is like, I'm working in service of the choreography or the piece that I'm making. Like it's like, what does it need? It's not what I want, but what does it need, like in service. And then you make something that is like, so, ah, yeah, but this I never thought I could never have created that or thought of that. It's something that is then beyond, and that's the thing. Like, ah, yeah, okay, I was in my surrender, let's say.
Yeah, yeah. It reminds what the thing I hear in both of what you're saying, that there seems this stage like where you first kind of start practicing and you're just trying to find what it is you're feeling and trying. And for me, it was like I was like really wanting to even express emotions because I hadn't that much, especially like crying or sadness or anger. It was like I was wanting to feel the energy of it, and I could sporadically, but then it's like, oh yeah, then you start to find the sensations and you can be with them more, and you notice that you go into deeper connection if you can stay more present to the sensations. But something you said, Ben, it's like suddenly there seems like a possibility where there's like an intelligence that seems to emerge out of the the feeling of being here, or this beingness. and it kind of directs you and tells you where to go or what to say, or and sometimes it feels like it gives me the exact word I should say. And if I don't say that because I'm embarrassed by the word, or it always it ruins the flow, like I have to stay faithful. But and then it takes me on this kind of wonderland journey of surprising, yeah, surprising depth or meaning.
Uh, The way that you describe it, Ben, is made me think about how I used to start as a coach trainer, where this magic in groups happens, and you have your program, but you don't know how to make it like in connection with the group, and there's other stuff coming up, and you make it, and it's really amazing, and I lost that by really trying to like, how do I do that?
Mm.
And transformational connection really helped me in finding that magic again with groups. It's like I'm in service of the whole, and of course, like people come in and they want to learn about feedback or leadership, and there's this program, so it's much more structured. But there's also a surrender needed to what is this program doing with people, and what do I get back, and yeah, I get a bit of chills saying it. It's like my training, my group work became more magical and more energizing. And it's a lot about less efforting and more daring to trust what the group and your experience is informing you of. Even if there
Mm.
is like a goal-oriented thing of these are the goals that I aligned with the customer. Um,
Yeah, I like when you started speaking, for me it was like, ah, this is what's happening right now is a good proof of what it is that we're talking about, because I had exactly the same story in my mind, but in a different relating to my practice. Like in the beginning, when I was making art, you just like you go and magic happens, in school, and then all of a sudden you become a professional, and then you need to deliver, and then I just like started to like, you try to control, you try to like, oh no, it has to be good, it has to, and so then it's like you go into this, and then yeah, and then actually transformational connections during the leadership was it's like, oh yeah, yeah, like bringing me back to like recognizing, coming back to that part. So yeah, so this also this synchronicity of the similar stories is really
Well,
strong.
when you share that, Ben, it does make me uh, remember like your kind of first year in the practice, and I wonder, like, when you remember back, like, whether it was always that easy. Uh,
I mean, in the first SAS, you mean?
yeah, and just when I first met you and you're kind of navigating this territory, and I think just to highlight, like, because you guys have stayed committed now for a good few years and you've been applying it and living it. So it's no wonder you're having these experiences now of integration and trust. But yeah, it's also like I want to touch on like, yeah, some of the challenges or something, or like the journey a bit.
Hmm. Yeah, wasn't expecting to brought back there.
let's stay in the
We're in a
success
nice,
stories.
yeah.
What did you say, Peter?
Let's stay in the success stories,
Uh,
the bright side.
I mean, just yeah, well, but it still comes back, but there's like a part of transformational connection that for some reason just really triggers a huge discomfort in me, which is like especially with more experienced people, like in the setting of like people where a lot of people are doing the practice, like I just go into mute, like I freeze up.
Mm.
And And at first SAS, I was just like, it was funny because the first workshop that I did, I felt like a fish in the water. I was like, I did one workshop with Peter and Deborah, and I was like, that's it. I'm doing SAS like one day, and it was because I just remember like going home, like I was just on a cloud. It was like, it's kind of like, oh, you know, this is what I was looking for. And then I entered the SAS like all confident, you know, I come into the room. And 3 days I could hardly speak, you know, and then the last day I had like this massive headache, and it was just like, and then I found my way, you know, and and also through the body. I remember like, and it was also like, I remember Teresa, her what she was bringing in, like, and Elsa, also like her people from, yeah, artistic backgrounds. I was like, I had like this entry point, and then I remember like, yeah, being so grateful, like really having found back this kind of tools to come back to my inner compass, you know, and to really be able to navigate and feel and like dare to like express that, and to be in this space where you feel, where, yeah, like aliveness is flowing. It was yeah, it was like it's like, oh, you want to do transformational connection, okay. And then like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think in a way, any kind of serious kind of look at our experience. And the thing is, like, we're not just looking at like this heightened states of surrender and transcendence. It's it's going to put you in touch with your shadow or
Yeah.
suppressed emotions or the parts of you that are less integrated and less conscious. And that's not for the faint-hearted. And like in the beginning, for me, that there was this frame that someone used that when you really start kind of exploring in this territory, like you'll get a gift. It's almost like you get a gift from the gods. And so it's like, you know, you feel this, like you said, a fish in water, or you suddenly can connect with being, or you suddenly can have this intimacy that's effortless and powerful and playful, or whatever it is, and you're like, right, I'm in. And then you get the trials, and it's like, oh man, I don't know if I'm in anymore. Like, this is hard. But what he used to say was like, you got to clean out the pipes. It's like all the pipes in your house have still got kind of stuff in there from like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and now you want to make your whole kind of house flow again. You got to kind of go down in into those pipes. And I don't know if I'd use that analogy now, because what I've kind of, the big thing that was discovery for me is, there's often you hear this term as well, like when people do therapy or inner work, where they go like, oh, I'm cleaning out my shit, or I'm like, oh, that's my shit.
Mm.
And it doesn't sound that friendly. Like, it doesn't sound like that's good, what's in you. And it's like, I don't want my shit to get like projected on anyone else. Actually, when you think what shit is, it's actually quite an amazing organic kind of material that's quite important for the environment. But and that's actually more resonant with what my experience has been, is when you get in touch with these suppressed emotions, or sadness, loneliness, despair, terror, like they sound kind of awful, but when you're conscious and in connection with other people, it feels like it's almost like a drug to experience it consciously. It brings new perspective and depth and intimacy. So these parts of us just feel like gateways, but it's hard to realize that, because we've learnt so hard to suppress or fear those parts.
Mm.
Yeah, how does it land hearing that?
For me, there's even a like being unconscious of them and the way we escape from them in ourselves becomes really present. It's like I used to try in my first SAS to like get what was going on so that I could find a way in and be part of this experience. It was really, really, really hard. Yeah, and that then uncovered, like, once I became more conscious that, oh, like I'm here, like I'm here the whole time, like trying to like, but what's here? And then suddenly feeling like all the tension that's there of like, is this safe, and like, am I part? And then I could experience or start experiencing slowly like what other deeper emotions were underneath that tension, or like what did they cover up. It's not 1, 2, 3, that one. Yeah, even now, it's like I once heard John share like, oh, it's just like, it's like you're in a computer game, and once you like, it's you just got to the next level, it becomes again like, how does this thing work? That has been my experience with the practice as well. It's like once you think you get it, you get another challenge, and there's another deeper layer that gets revealed. There's less suffering, that's for sure. Okay, there's more ease, but it's still like it's nothing about getting it, or there. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, what happens for me somehow where I am now is that like if I don't have any shit coming up, not that I hold it in that way, but then like next level or like it's like then then it's like, oh, but practice wasn't deep enough, or like I didn't, like nothing came up, or where was my suffering, like, so like then trust to sit with that, or yeah.
Yeah.
so
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of like uh, kind of what I've heard about the Zen tradition or meditative traditions, where the the uh, the meditators been avoiding kind of the pain for the first 5 years, and then suddenly can experience it and allow it to flow. But then they become attached to that, and then the next journey is the kind of excruciating journey of like now being in some kind of new blankness or new thing that needs them to let go of their attachment to the energy. And it does seem that that's just what's happening in this practice, that as soon as you, like you said, got to this new level, you get the ender level boss that's that you can't just like do the same moves you did before. In fact, the moves you did before get you killed. And
exactly.
yeah, so if you just do the move where you kind of get in touch with your vulnerability and own it, on the new stage, it's like, no, that's not what's being called for. It's maybe stepping into peacefulness or more expression, or yeah, or something new, surprising.
Mhm.
Yeah, there was a surrender leadership circle I was leading, and I was really, really uncomfortable what was happening. People were playing and laughing, and I got hugely triggered. It was like, this is not a surrender leadership circle. You're just playing around. And then I could see the mirror in myself, like, oh, I have just difficulties sometimes having fun and being with playfulness and laughter, and yeah. So it was like, oh, all right. And then once I allowed it, it was a really nice circle with a lot of connection and depth and even pleasure, and yeah, yeah. So like once you think you know how the thing looks like, it changes.
Yeah, yeah, I'm going through an experience like that actually right now. Like we we just led uh, a week-long surrender leadership group in Portugal, and it's so strong to be with more experienced practitioners for a week, and leading with John, who's, you know,
Mhm.
just as experienced as I am. So it's like constant mirror, and but also we're co-leading, so there's constant challenge of our different visions and styles and ways of being, kind of trying to lead together, and it really brought I'm still in it, where it's like even takes me to the point of like, do I still like know what surrender is, or do I still, am I still on this path, or like is something shifting again? That's, and it's scary because there's a lot of the reality I've been in is built on like things I thought I knew about the practice, or about how I lead, or how John leads, or like my relationship with the people doing the practice. It just felt like everything was getting shaken up again, and yeah, like these new insights and development I've gained around how you set transformational boundaries in the practice, which is so powerful. Yeah, there's like with everything now I'm seeing like, but there's also something with it where it can become potentially a limit on intimacy. It can definitely bring deeper intimacy and bring a lot of regulation, and
Mhm.
but then there could be a way it also limits intimacy. But then I see others going into intimacy and getting entangled without their boundaries, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't look good. And so I'm now like, where am I? Like, what? Yeah, how do I integrate all this? But while I'm doing that, something in my kind of deeper psyche or emotional structure is also getting revealed, and it's like, oh, that's difficult.
I think that's also what I like about leading this practice. It's not a handbook methodology or something. It's like a constant discovery where you're just part of what's happening instead of making something possible. Yeah.
Mm.
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 Something in me that relaxes somehow. So when you speak about where you are in your process, because I caught myself mm, like I was becoming aware that somewhere in my system I'm holding this idea of like an end point, like that it's yeah place where then become a circling master and there's no more challenge or something like that. And then to hear you, definitely has much more years of experience, to recognize. Oh yeah, so yeah, so just keep moving, like where I am now in 10 years and the other things to explore.
Yeah, it's just like life, some kind of way. That's like one of the gems of this practice is like, oh, it's making you more ready for life, which is also, yeah, it's like once you know what life is, you've been shaking up. So it has helped me a lot. Yeah, to be with like uncertainties and navigating
Mm.
what life throws at me.
Yeah, when you say that, I heard someone someone gave me a message today and just said, "Ah, the way the world is now, I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing, and I just hope you keep doing it." And and even though it was nice to hear that, I was like, did question like, is this what the world's looking for? Because in one way where we started, it's like this trusting something deeper and this, yeah, kind of falling in love with being and knowing what being is and being able to be guided by it and how it actually just makes everything easier and has an intelligence so, yeah, so much more than the sum of its parts. So it's like, of course we need that in the world. But then when I think of that journey of integration and like what gets challenged at first and how that's kind of confronting and like finding complex trauma in yourself and freezing, dissociation, going into fight responses just when someone tries to come closer to you, or and then I think of that on a global level. I'm like,
Mm.
it's like, and and when like the way that I'm always seeing like marketing kind of, there's always this message that you should simplify, you should like let it be understandable for everyone and make it easier and more steps, and I'm like, I don't know if that is what this is, and I don't know if I want to do that. So like, is this what the world is calling for right now? Because it's an it's an intense journey.
Yeah, those I want to hear more. I think I could be closer to your world around that.
Yeah, well, I think the why that comes up because we kind of are in a position, and we there are quite a few people around the world now that are practicing, and there's more media, and but yeah,
Mm.
I think the questions like, I'm interested how you guys feel about like like what you imagine this would do for the world, or like, do you sense the world calling for this, or I just get the sense that maybe the practice is going to do something surprising anyway. We don't know what's going to happen and how it will start to impact the world on a bigger level.
Well, I think mm, for me, if I what I'm reading and picking up left and right and meeting other people and also seeing new generation of students also that I'm
Mm.
sometimes working with in schools and stuff like that, is that the basics of this practice, uh, acting, acting from a place of authenticity, like what's really there. I think like humanity, I just see it everywhere, is like waking up to that, the need of that, and that it's like I see it as our, what we do is part of a bigger collective of people recognizing the power of the practice and the necessity of it, and yeah, it seems that it's like I said, also the youngsters that I work with, it's really a core value that they're practicing, and then it goes into a shadow also, like, or like again, maybe finding, like it becomes maybe place a place to then avoid certain things that they don't want to do or something like that. But it's like, but you just see that there's like an awakening, yeah, collectively happening, that we are contributing to.
Yeah.
And which brings me back to again this kind of collective intelligence that we're just acting in a bigger part that we're just surrendering to.
When you shared about marketing, Sean, could feel a part of me when I just learned the practice. It was like, everybody should come. like this is so valuable. But I, yeah, I won't say it like that anymore. It's like I'm sharing the good word, or like, but not in a way like only when I feel like people are open to it, or it could serve. And I think it's not a good idea to have the whole world into a surrendered leadership circle. That will be really a mess. And there's also a part of me that like I need to have this practice in all my trainings from now on, because I'm working around communication and leadership. And also that changed. It's like, wow, just let's start with like people, like let them move around and feel their bodies a bit. Already a lot of stuff happens. Like, so also being more sensitive to like, oh, it's like my need. I want more connection, and I want more aliveness and realness in my groups. So I want to bring this practice, but it's, yeah. And there's a strong desire to have this practice more in businesses and people that where it's really at service. And I really imagine a lot of groups or companies that are there.
I really feel present in my legs as you're speaking now. It's like it's really come online. Something was opening. I think what I also realized is just like the level of unknown and being more okay with that. Like just all the different influences that I can have from social media, and I like YouTube for getting my information, but it's also like a minefield of perspectives and algorithms, and but it's really good to feel this sense of there's such an unknown ahead of me. I don't need to push for anything
Yeah, that resonates.
until I want to, or until I get told to. Yeah.
Yeah, and then not pushing that down or playing that down either.
Mm. Well, I wonder if there are any last things you guys would like to share. Like it feels like we've touched on some cool themes and we're coming nearer the end here. Yeah, is there anything that's alive still?
Yeah, just I want to share that like the whole talk, like I noticed since the beginning, like my heart just like glows, start glowing like more. Like this whole space has been there. I don't know. It's like so. I was in Colombia for 6 weeks and coming back here, and I traveled with my partner, and I'm now home alone. They're coming with the kid, her kid. They're coming 4 days later. It's really challenging to be here back in this box after living outside for 6 weeks in the jungle. But I've there's like I feel a lot of nourishment and through this conversation. Actually, bring me back. You know, it's all the time reminding me. Yeah, trust the unknown. Just be with what it is. Like okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's also so easy to forget. It's like, medicine of each other that we are towards each other. And, we feel that right now.
Yeah, it's really inspiring. What I still want to share is, like, it made me think, Ben, what you shared is, like, I could expect others to be more skillful in connecting with me, I'm thinking about my daughter and like my partner, that like the first months it was like, you should like also, because then I could, and then realizing like, it's far more difficult to take ownership and responsibility over what I could just change in the communication. And you start off by like being silent, as you do a lot in surrender leadership circles, and then finding out that that's really uncomfortable for the other person. Like there's a lot of things that flow from transformational connection and surrender leadership to the way I dare to be with others. With with that also creating like more possibilities. And yeah, I've been on a journey with my business partner in a transition where the founder of the company is stepping out. And I was also like, oh, she should like be like Ben because blah 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 blah, like a whole story in me but it's not necessary to already be more true in a connection, even if the other one doesn't know the practice. And it's fucking scary to do as well. Like there's a lot of bah 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 and trying that. I think I think as part of me wants to speak to the potential of this practice for just daily life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's especially when life gets really like those poignant moments, like my mother in the last part of her life, or being with my daughter in a very important moment, and there's just not much time to react. And if you've ever been with someone at the end of their life, suddenly there's not really many moments. You've got to, well, in a way, there's opportunities that are important to show up in, and that's where I'm like very grateful that I get to make so many mistakes in the practice room and get to refine and get used to trusting and saying the thing that's difficult to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, it's so many opportunities to own more what you're doing, what you're telling, what you're sharing, how much, how easy you project stuff around you.
Yeah, and I don't know if I've shared this with you guys before, but there was a shift in my perspective where it was like in the beginning it was like, oh man, we're complexifying life in these circles. Like we're realizing all this depth. We're realizing like actually people have trauma and they have symbolic awareness, and they've got these transpersonal potentials that are trying to come out, and like shadow and all these different perspectives can be integrated at the simultaneously. Like we're really complexifying things. But actually my view shifted almost totally the other way, that the practice environment becomes so rich more because it slightly simplifies life. So even though surrender leadership is it's such an open practice because we want to make things as realistic to how human relationships are, like not too many structures around what can happen. But that's still not what life's like. You don't start together, kind of sat together, being present. It's like it's all happening, and there's so many things going on. There's so many different contexts. And I think most people experience the complexity of life as a kind of mundaneness or restlessness, or but I think that's just a response to the sheer like complexity of really living life from truth and really
Mm-hmm.
taking in everything that's kind of available for us. And the practice just gives us a chance to prepare for that. And yeah.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Maybe one last thing I'm going to share it makes me think of like how Ellen, my partner, she's always glad when I go circling or when I go for transformational connection, because I really come back like I can, ta-da! Yeah, and it feels that way. Like I've been going from an SES 4 days in Malmö with the airplane early in the morning on a Monday, and then just jumping into the office and having a team meeting. I feel like very very in flow, and that's really due. Like there's something in my energy most of the time is getting shaped.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not an easy one to let you be shaped, but like mostly it's really worth it. Yeah.
It's really cool to be with you both again, and glad we set this up. And yeah, for anyone, yeah, listening that might be interested, the three of us are going to be joining forces in Brussels and later in the year, October. You can check that out on the website, and yeah, in the description. I'll give some details for these guys in the description as well. You can
Mm-hmm.
definitely do coaching and cool stuff with these guys in Brussels for sure, and highly recommended. And yeah, thanks for being here, and yeah, very much looking forward to what we create together.
Yeah,
And yeah,
thank you,
big
Sean.
love.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah.